First listening. Listen to the lecture. As you listen, number the parts of the lecture from 1 to 5.
What I'd like to talk to you about today is child language development. I know that you all are trying to learn a second language, but for a moment, let's think about a related topic: how children learn their first language. What do we know about how babies develop their language and communication ability? Well, we know babies are able to communicate as soon as they are born, even before they learn to speak. At first, they communicate by crying. This crying lets their parents know when they are hungry, or unhappy, or uncomfortable. However, they soon begin the process of acquiring language. The first stage begins a few weeks after birth. At this stage, babies start to make cooing noises when they are happy. Then, at around 4 months, they begin to babble. Babies all over the world begin to babble around the same age, and they all begin to make the same kinds of babbling noises. By the time they are 10 months old, however, the babbling of babies from different language backgrounds sounds different. For example, the babbling of a baby in a Chinese-speaking home sounds different from the babbling of a baby in an English-speaking home. Babies begin a new stage of language development when they start to speak their first words. At first, they invent their own words for things. For example, a baby in an English-speaking home may say "baba" for the word ball, or "kiki" for cat. In the next few months, babies will acquire a lot of words. These words are usually the names of things that are in the baby's environment. Words for food or toys, for example. They will begin to use these words to communicate with others. For example, if a baby holds up an empty juice cup and says "juice," the baby seems to be saying, "I want more juice," or "May I have more juice?" This word "juice" is really a one-word sentence. The next stage of language acquisition begins around 18 months, when babies begin to say two-word sentences. They use a kind of grammar to put words together. The babies produce what is called telegraphic speech, meaning they leave out all but the most essential words. An English-speaking child might say something like "Daddy, up," which actually means, "Daddy, pick me up, please." Then, between 2 and 3 years of age, children learn more and more grammar. For example, they begin to use the past tense of verbs. In other words, they learn the rule for making the past tense of many verbs. The children begin to say things such as, "I walked home," and "I kissed Mommy." They also overgeneralize this new grammar rule and make a lot of mistakes. For example, children often say such things as, "I goed to bed," instead of "I went to bed," or "I eated ice cream," instead of "I ate ice cream." In other words, the children have learned the past tense rule for regular verbs, such as walk and kiss, But they haven't learned that they cannot use this rule for all verbs. Some verbs, like eat, are irregular, and the past tense forms for irregular verbs must be learned individually. Anyway, these mistakes are normal. The children will soon learn to use the past tense for regular and irregular verbs correctly. They then continue to learn other grammatical structures in the same way. If we stop to think about it, it's quite amazing how quickly children all over the world learn their language. It's also amazing how similar the process is for babies all over the world. You probably don't remember anything about how you learned your first language. But now that you've learned something about the process, think about how the process of learning a first and second language may be similar and different. After class, why not make a list of some similarities and differences in the processes of child and adult language learning? Then we'll talk about it next time we meet.